Hello. How are you doing, Pilot and Amanda?
Pretty good. I'm having a good morning. How about
Good,
you?
good.
I'm doing good too. I made coffee. I do that every morning, but it's a good part of my good morning. And
Okay, bro.
I did it well today. It tastes pretty good. And I'm excited because I got kind of two blog posts out before like 9 a.m. today. One on my own blog and one on the company blog, which I definitely scheduled, so it doesn't really count. But whatever.
That's good.
Um, so I got the blogging out there, and we're gonna do not more blogging, but we're gonna do more websites today, right now. So
Nice.
Yes.
I'm pretty excited. I am um so I'm particularly excited because uh this is possibly the most intersection of Taylor interests kind of stream possible. And I think for the both of you in a lot of ways too. But what we're talking about is our favorite tool that doesn't have anything to do with Reclaim, but we still talk about all the time on Reclaim TV, which is called Obsidian.
Check it
Um,
out for bingo cards.
yeah, yeah, and check that off in your bingo cards because, of course, it is a fantastic markdown, another square on your bingo card editor that you can use for note taking. And the reason I say it doesn't have much to do with Reclaim is it's a app you install on your devices. It's not actually open source, and although it definitely plays in that space. There's tons of like plugins and things. We're not going to go all the way into what Obsidian is. We have lots of streams on that, and go just type the word Obsidian into YouTube and you can probably watch videos for the rest of your life about it if you want to.
It's a
Um,
lot.
it's a lot. So yeah, but it's a fantastic markdown note taking app. One of the things that has we've talked about a lot is how can I use Obsidian to publish my notes? Obsidian lives the whole point of it really is that your notes live on your device as files and you can sync them via various ways, but the core of it is your notes are just a folder with text files, which is awesome. And so how do you make that into a website? And we've talked about various ways of doing it. We've shown, I'm pretty sure I've shown an extension or more like a script that um, lets you publish one file at a time, which is
I
kind of
think
nice.
that's what we have a stream about that from like a year and a half or 2
I
years
think
ago.
2 years. Yeah, it's been a while. To be perfectly honest, I haven't used that thing in a while. I don't even know if it works right now. It was not well maintained even when I showed it. So, but
That's
I liked it a lot. There's Obsidian Sync, which is a service they sell that takes a vault in Obsidian and publishes it as a website. The problem with Sync is you don't have a lot of control over hosting. They have to host it for you, and the paid feature to host it is pretty expensive. It's
sync or
I
publish.
I'm sorry, publish. You're right. Yes, Sync
Sync
is
is
the
their
thing that
like
lets you sync stuff.
yeah, sync is like a Google Docs esque
It
like
just syncs your vault between devices. That's all it
yeah.
does. And I use that, and it is also I think it's $10 a month. But I am such an Obsidian user that's like yeah, I'll easily pay that because to have it work perfectly, and I do mean perfectly. I've never had any conflicts. There's like a whole backup and history system. For me, that's great. I would recommend most people just put it in Dropbox or iCloud Drive or Google Drive personally. But if you're obsessive like me and you do use it from multiple devices, sometimes even at the same time, like sometimes I'll have notes up on my computer and I'll be editing a different note on my phone because it's lunchtime and I'm thinking of something I need to remember tonight, that kind of stuff. Um, then Sync is great. But Obsidian Publish, that makes a website. It is $8 a month, which isn't too bad, to be honest. But I have problems with it. I really don't like to make websites via publishing tools that require that subscription. And that may sound hypocritical from a hosting company, but the whole point of this types of stuff we host is that, if you ever wanted to take your websites and not host them with Reclaim, you can do that, right? It's all open tooling that we're using. That's not really the case with Publish. So I don't like investing in something that I'm then locked into personally. Um, So this comes up a lot. We've also looked at publishing sort of just markdown notes in a lot of ways. So maybe you use Obsidian to write the notes, but then you could use something like HedgeDoc or Doxify. We have a whole Flex course that Amanda and I kind of led on how to think about publishing in sort of different ways than we're used to thinking about, basically. And Obsidian could play a role in all of those, but that's a little bit more work. It's hey, I'm going to author over here and then copy things over here and then maybe tweak them to make sure they work properly. None of them are like, take my vault and put it on the internet the way that Obsidian publishes. So today we're going to look at something that does exactly that. It's a tool that lets you take an Obsidian vault and make it into a website. And it's a static site generator, which might as well be another bingo card or a bingo square. We do talk about those a lot. I have a checkered past with static site generators. I like them. I hate them. It depends on the day. But this is one that I've been playing with. I think is a lot simpler to use than most of the static site generators I've encountered. And it is kind of designed for one purpose, which is great in this case because it makes it simpler to get started with. And it's called Quartz. So this thing is, it technically can do more than publish an Obsidian vault, but it's very much designed to publish an Obsidian vault. That they're very upfront about. This is the whole point of this tool is to do this one thing. So this is the Quartz website, and it's basically, the documentation is weird. And part of the reason why I want to make this video is to, I think, make a streamline, here's how you would use this thing. Because I don't think they do a perfect job of describing this for someone who's not highly technical. And they say it's a batteries included static site generator. Batteries included is like a developer-y term in the web dev world that I couldn't even perfectly describe to you. Like they're already losing me, in my opinion. That transforms markdown content. I really wish this just said, Quartz is a static site generator for your Obsidian vault. And then maybe go into that detail, in the second sentence. But, or maybe, who knows? Maybe they were asked not to mention Obsidian on their homepage by the Obsidian folks. That's possible.
It's possible.
It does mention Obsidian elsewhere. So, but anyway, this website we're looking at right now is also built in Quartz. This is what Quartz kind of looks like. And it's honestly, I think it's beautiful. It's really, really pretty out of the box. It's got amazing search that's really fast. And you have to search for things that exist, unfortunately. That's its only...
I mean, you searched for Obsidian a second ago, and yeah, hosting, Obsidian compatibility.
Yeah, it's not just by page, it's by content. It's super cool. It's got the whole graph thing that we've talked about, right? The Obsidian graph linking notes thing is cool. I always wonder, I look at my graph and I go, wow, and then I close it. I don't know what to do with it, but it's cool. That's cool.
Graphing is really useful if you have, I don't know metadata exactly. I use the graph view for my notes for the mystery tabletop RPG that I play with my friends.
I knew it.
So
I knew it was going to be your RPG.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because I was thinking graph, like what would I use that for? And I'm like, I bet Pilot uses it for RPG.
Well, there's not a whole lot that I do that's not RPG related in some way.
It makes sense though.
Yeah, so like here's the suspects, and those are all in the suspects folder, and the suspects folder is orange in the graph, and you can see that they're connected to these locations, or they're connected to the victim in some way, and like
great way to use it.
It's actually I periodically screenshot it and send it to the group chat, and they just go, cool, this is your crazy wall.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm working on the pegboard version of this with the yarn,
string,
right? Yeah. No, I think it's cool. I think what you made me realize just now is that like clearly that's not how my brain works. Like I love what you just described and I could see that being useful, but I could never bring myself to create that structure.
I can't do it for work. It doesn't work for the stuff that I have to do for Reclaim. It only has It only works for like this very specific use case.
Sure. so the cool thing, basically, so this tool, if you've used Obsidian, this might even look vaguely familiar, right? Because it's kind of laid out the way that Obsidian's really customizable, but it's kind of laid out the way that Obsidian is. There's a search field. There's like a file browser on the left. There's a graph view, although I don't know, that's not normally at the right, but it looks similar to Obsidian's graph view. And there's even a table of contents, which Obsidian can have in notes. So like if you're using headings, which you should use headings. Use headings, they're good. It's cool. And it has backlinks support too. So I guess this particular node is not backlinked, but let's find front matter here. So this note called front matter is backlinked on these 3 other notes. It even has the Obsidian thing where you can hover over a link and kind of preview the note right in line, which is kind of cool. So what can you do with this? Okay, we're looking at it. You can make a website, but the exciting thing is you can just run this tool. It is a command line tool. So that's definitely the downside, is that it's not like a GUI thing. But you know, maybe someone would make a GUI for this. I don't know. But you run this tool, it makes a website locally on your computer, and then you just need to upload it to anywhere you have web hosting. And we're going to do that, of course, on cPanel today. But you know, you could host it lots of different places potentially. And you are left with HTML files, right, that are going to work basically. So you don't have to worry about, you know, updating the database or the software or anything like that. This is just a simple website. So I am gonna demo how we actually do this. So there's a lot of different things you could do with this tool, and what I'm going to try and do in this stream is go through what I think is the most simple path, and we're going to take diversions at the end. So that doesn't mean you all can't ask questions. What I'm saying is my natural tendency when provided with options is to explain every option and how that's cool. That's what makes me to some extent. But I don't think in this case that's what's useful. We're going to try and do the simple thing first, and then we'll talk about possibilities after. So I'm actually going to, I'm already on the home page. So this is what we need to do to get started. So I need to go into my terminal, and we have to run these commands to get started with Quartz. One other thing I'm not going to demo is you do have to install Node. And that's actually pretty easy to do. They link to it here. You can go to the Node website, click the download button, and install it. There are other ways to install Node. Maybe you already have Node, but just go ahead and get this version installed, and you should be good to go. I am going to change directory to my desktop just to make the files that we're working with today easy to find. But I would recommend making a special folder, you know, call it notes or call it public notes or something. Maybe put it in maybe it's a Git repository if you're comfortable with GitHub. Maybe it's Dropbox or something. It's just so it's not only living on your computer and then eventually you lose the files, right? Today we're just going to use the desktop though. And you could always move it after too. So I'm going to run this command, which apparently I didn't copy. There we go. And this is going to download the Quartz project from GitHub. Then we're going to move into the folder. Then we're using Node Package Manager, NPM, to install the dependencies. It'll take a good 30 seconds. Tim, so this uses Node on your local computer. What the site we build. So Tim's question was, does Node mean no shared hosting would have to be cloud? No. In this case, we're going to install Node on our local computer and then build the site. But then we're going to upload the site to shared hosting. So we don't need Node on the web server in this case. So this will work pretty much anywhere with that workflow. Then we're going to run npx quartz build. So npx is basically a way to tell things like, hey, I'm going to run a special script in this project. And the script is called quartz build, basically. Or sorry, quartz create. That's what the instructions say. So I'm going to do that. And I love this little wizard that it goes through. So it says like, hey, how do you want to do this? Do you want to initialize the content in this folder? Do you want it to be empty? Copy an existing folder, symlink an existing folder. We're going to go with empty. Like I said, from now, no diversions, but so we're going to go on the easy path
later.
Yeah, empty Quartz. And then it says, choose how Quartz should resolve links in your content. We're going to go with the default option, but this is a diversion we won't return to later, which is if you have like more specific or fancy Obsidian settings, you basically want to match those here. But I'm going to go with the default. And that's it. So it says, great, you are set. Now you can run these commands to work with your site. So this is a little confusing because you're like, what site? What it's done is made a blank site for us. So now we're going to open Obsidian and edit the site. So I, of course, already have Obsidian open because I have my notes for this very stream we're doing. But I'm going to go into my Obsidian, click on my vault, and go to Manage Vaults. And then I'm going to go Open Folder as Vault. And here I'm going to go into where I just was working in. In my case, it's on my desktop, Quartz. And what you're going to want to do is open the Content folder. And this will open up a new, in my case, a second Obsidian window. But it's going to open up a new vault. And all that's in here right now is this index file. And it says index, properties, title, welcome to Quartz. This is a blank Quartz installation. Cool. So from here, though, I can edit things, right? So I could say like, hey, let's see what this looks like. I could make a new note. Of course, I'm going to call it my cool note. And we'll put some generic text in there. And maybe we even go back to this first note and we'll link to that my cool note just to see how those links work. So we can do two things. We can actually build the site out so we would upload it, but I'm actually going to do a preview on my local computer before we do that. So we're going to do npx quartz build -- serve. And my recommendation here when you're working with a tool like this is make a note in your Notes app, perhaps Obsidian, for some of the commands that you want to run, because you're not going to remember all of these, especially if you come back to this in months later. So make a note, call it Quartz, and put in there like, oh yeah, this is the folder I keep it in. And this is the command to preview it. This is the command to do whatever. Write those things down. It's going to make your life easier, even if you think you'll remember them now. So it's going to do a bunch of things and says, hey, started a Quartz server listening at this URL. So I'm going to click on that. And here we go. This is what our website will look like. So you can see it says, welcome to Quartz. This is a blank Quartz installation. And this is what I added. Hey, let's see what this looks like. My cool note. There we go.
Oh, and it offers a hover preview. Is that because you have a hover preview plugin, or is that just a thing it does?
That's just the default thing it does.
Nice.
Even the main website has that. So
love that.
Yeah. And you can see it matches over here. So one of the cool things is I can go in Obsidian again, and I can pick a folder and call it more stuff and put a note in there. More cool notes. And here we'll use different filler text. My favorite artisanal hipster filler text thing. And the cool thing is, as you make changes, it literally live updates.
And if you link to, so if you go into my cool note and you link to more stuff / my more cool notes, it does that sort of linking into, because that's one thing that I think we talked about last time. Last time we did a markdown static site generator, was that the original one didn't have a good way to do directory.
Yeah, in that one, it was about publishing a single note.
Yes.
It wasn't really publishing a whole vault, and this does that. Now, I'm not really sure why this content isn't coming through here. That's interesting. So maybe I need,
there we go.
I guess I just had to have it save out the file. But yeah, so I love how this preview works. And it's really fast, and it It's really cool. I like that it simply matches on the left side your Obsidian folder structure. So if you want to do things, of course, it excludes index, which I think is smart, right? Because you wouldn't really want that in there. Your index is your homepage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else shows up in here. And I find that really interesting and cool. And simple, right? Like you can kind of see how this wouldn't be, you could do like a blog with this, but it's probably not really the intention. It's more for publishing a folder of notes, or I could see doing this for like documentation or even course content. Like I think
that's what I
this
was
structure
thinking.
could work.
Yeah.
So
Of course, the first place my brain went was Lore Bible for your RPG.
there you go. Yeah. So now from here, what we're going to do is we're actually going to publish this as a website, and we'll keep editing it and things like that. But for now, I'm going to go back in here and exit out of this preview program that we're running. So I'm going to do a Control C. That's going to quit that. So if I refresh now, it's going to, it's not running anymore. That's fine. We don't need that right now. So now we're going to build the website out. And for this, we want to do npx quartz build and just leave off the serve. We don't need serve. So I'm going to delete that. Okay, so it did that. And now if I go into my desktop, in my Quartz folder I have here, there's a lot of stuff in here. Most of these files are really for like Quartz itself. And then again, remember that content, that's where our Obsidian Vault lives. What we want here is public. It just made this folder, and this is the website. So we just have to upload this, basically. So I'm going to go to my cPanel, and I'm going to make a new subdomain.
I need to do the thing that you just did, because right now, the way that I log into my cPanel is to use our admin interface to search for my personal email and go in through there, which is so inefficient.
I actually intentionally did that for demo purposes for these streams to make it really fast for me to get into my cPanel. So I'm going to make a new domain for now. I'm going to call it quartz-demo. So we'll just do that. And I'm going to submit that.
Just chilling.
Yep, just chilling. Okay, so that exists now. Let me search for it. Cool. Let me just see that that's perfect, actually. It's what we want, I believe. So let me go into here.
Yeah, it's showing that because there's
no
literally nothing to show.
Yeah. True.
That's fine. So this is my folder. Now, we could upload these using the file manager. You could like zip that public folder up and then like extract it. I would strongly recommend using an SFTP client though, because that's going to make your life simpler. We have guides, maybe Pilot or Amanda, if you could grab a guide on like my FTP credentials, that one. But I would use an SFTP client. There's a lot of them out there. If you've never used one before, I would try probably CyberDuck or FileZilla. There's also paid options if you are like an SFTP person who does a lot of stuff. I like to use Transmit, but I'm in SFTP pretty often. What do y'all think I should use today? Should I use FileZilla or Transmit? I can use the free one. I could use the
I've never heard of Transmit. By the way, time for a super ugly banner. Enjoy that.
Oh, beautiful.
I also put it in the chat, but
yeah. Pause the video if you're watching later and you need this URL.
Type it out one by one.
Yeah. So I guess I'll use Transmit. I mean, all these clients kind of do the same thing, and we're not going to cover everything you need to know about SFTP today. Mainly that guide will. So, but once you have a client set up, I will connect here. And I have a lot of folders in my account, so this is going to look horrible. But I'm going to need to find the subdomain I just created, quartzdemo.jaden.me. And there we go. So as you can see, it's the same thing as basically hidden files are shown here, but that's fine. So I'm going to close this for now. And I'm actually going to open this website up so I have it. Okay. And all I need to do is go to Finder and grab the files in this public folder and drop them in. So let me do that.
Oh, they also include just a default 404 for you. That's nice.
And an RSS feed.
Nice.
Index.xml. Yeah, it's kind of cool. And so we're gonna cross our fingers and refresh the page. Hey, look at that. It's a website. So
we did that in under 30 minutes.
Yeah, we did that. Now we're gonna do a little bit more customization of it, because the very next thing you're gonna want to do is say, change the title of the site and stuff like that. We're also going to fix something. We're going to do kind of a required step when you're hosting Quartz basically anywhere. Quartz has just given us a bunch of HTML files, right? But if I click on some of these links, if you look at, it's probably kind of small. So let me copy this link here. If I put this in here and blow this up so it's easier to see, you can see it defaults to like nice links, right? My-cool-note. But we are smart web people and know that, well, that's cool, but the file's called mycool-note.html. We have to tell the web server how to do that. And if you're mostly used to the world of WordPress, you're going to go, doesn't that just work? And it's like, no, actually WordPress does that for you. So if I click on this link, it's not going to work. So I'm going to say, I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't work. But if I add HTML in the end, then it works, right?
Okay.
So we have to do one more thing with our site. And I'm going to do this in my FTP client because we are already using that. You could do this in cPanel in the file manager too, but we need to make an htaccess file for this to work. And Quartz has this on their hosting page, which is giant and includes all the ways you can host it. It has a whole complicated thing on GitHub pages, and it has a whole complicated thing on like how to do this in like other platforms like Vercel. We just need to grab this sample code and says, hey, if you're using Apache, which if you're on shared hosting, you are, you just need to make a file called htaccess and copy this in here. So,
or domain of one's own, cPanel.
Yes. Yep. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to make a new file, call it htaccess. And most FTP clients will let you edit in place nowadays. This is part of the reason I really like Transmit, is because Transmit lets you just like double click on the file and it'll open in a text editor like magic.
Hell yeah.
And I'm gonna paste that in and hit save. And now let's try this again. So let me go back to the home page, click on my note. There we go. So now the links work properly, and they're pretty links, right? They don't have to include the HTML extension. So we've got the thing set up. It now works. Now we're going to do some more customization. So the Quartz web page also has a whole thing on configuration. It has literally every option documented that you could change. Apparently there are plugins. I really haven't played with that, but that's interesting. We're just going to go in and look at the file, to be honest, because I think that's the best way to figure this stuff out sometimes. So I'm going to go back to my desktop in the Quartz folder. And what we want to look at is the quartz.config.ts folder. So I'm going to double click on this.
As a quick question, are we changing the look? What are we changing?
We're going to
look or functionality?
We're going to change the title.
Okay, we'll start with that.
So right now the title is Quartz 4.0. Obviously, I don't really want that. How about I do something like my cool notes garden or something, right?
And that's for like the site title.
Yes. Yeah. It is interesting that it calls it page title. I agree. I would call that site title, but
right.
That's
because then you
what
have
Quartz calls it.
The homepage with the title different in the index file.
Yeah, I think you're technically correct. I agree with you. But for whatever reason, Quartz calls it a page title. The other thing we can do too, and this is actually something we can go back to Obsidian for, is you'll note the indexed file, right? These other ones, it uses the title of the note for the page names. So if I go to my cool note, it's going to put that right there. But index is different because we wouldn't want it to say index. It added this little properties thing. So we can also change the title here, but this only applies to the home page. It doesn't apply to this like sidebar thing.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
let me put, you know, I guess I'll put my welcome to my digital garden. People like to use the word digital garden for these types of things. So let's do that too. I'm going to save this over here and close it. And to update my public site, well, I could preview it, right? So I could do the npx Quartz build serve thing again, but I'm just going to go right to building the site out again. So I'm just going to hit npx Quartz build for the purposes of the demo today. And I just need to do the same thing I did before. I just need to drag those files again. So I'm going to go back to
So you have to drag
transmit.
the files every time you edit.
Yes. Yeah, because they're just on my local computer right now. So you do have to re-upload them. You could probably guess where I'm going with no diversions for the start of this demo, right? Because this works, but it's not something you're going to do all the time. And this is the problem, honestly, with static site generators. They're conceptually very simple, but when you get into the details of what people want from a website, it kind of falls down, I think. Like people, you go, oh yeah, it's simple. I know it's a command line thing, but you just have to run this one command. It's like, okay, but when I update it, how do I get my files there? You know, you drag them again. Oh yeah, that works. Could it like sync? It's like, you could. Now you just need to learn about rsync.
Everybody loves rsync.
And most people pay us to worry about rsync, right?
I've worked here for 3 years, and I know that rsync does. I know what rsync does. That's it.
Yeah. So here we go, though. It's not that painful to upload those files. It's not that bad. So here we go. I changed my title. I've got, I didn't actually change anything about my notes, but that's all updated now. So this is kind of what I love about this is if you have ever used another static site generator, like Amanda, I know you have experience with Jekyll. I've used Hugo. I've also used Jekyll a little bit. It's not actually this fast to get up and running with one of those tools typically. Typically, you have quite a bit of customization to make the site look the way you want because those things are more general purpose, right? They're more for like, it could be a blog. It could be anything, That's great, but it means it's more complicated. Whereas this, I think, is such a nice focused use case. It's actually relatively simple to start using. So where do we go from here? So I already talked about the happy path, right? Of, hey, the defaults. But there's more you could do with this. So you could, instead of using SFTP to upload things, if that bothered you, like I said, you could use rsync. Rsync isn't that bad, but you just want to play with it and be careful. But basically, rsync is a tool that lets you, from the command line, copy files to a different computer. So in this case, it would be from your machine to your shared hosting space on Reclaim. If I wanted to do that like I am here, it would look, I'm not going to actually, well, I guess I could demo this, but it uses the same thing as SFTP. So let me just clear this to go out. But I would basically do a command like this. I would go rsync -a, which means copy all the file properties and copy recursively. H means give me human readable statistics, so like file sizes and things. Insane that's not a default, but whatever. And then capital P is the one I normally use, but that gives output in a certain way. Technically, you could get away with just A, but I always use AHP for other reasons we'll get to.
I assume that H is the default, just like for speed, saying if it's going to return it, like it'll take slightly longer to reformat it into a human readable way. But like,
no, it's just the statistic. It just changes. H and P mostly are just changing what it looks like on my terminal. That's basically all it does. but it is kind of useful in certain ways. Mostly that's more important when we're talking about large site migrations, the kind of thing we do sometimes in infrastructure. But once you have an rsync command that you like, you might as well just use it everywhere. So this is Taylor's favorite version of this. All right, then you give it a path in your local computer. So in my case, that would be tilde, which is my home folder. I have it in my desktop right now, Quartz, and then public, right? That's the folder I want. And then I need to tell it where on my web hosting space it needs to go. So you need your username and your server name and your password. So I would go my username, my server name. Then I want a colon, and I need to put where it goes on the server. So this is where this gets like a little complicated, right? So it's now my home folder over there in quartz-demo.jaden.me. That was the folder, and ending with a slash. And if I hit return.
While that's running, Taylor, we did have a question in the chat from Tim Clark, which is, I think he's built an Obsidian theme. Can he pull that and drop it into the Quartz directory?
That is a very good question. I don't know. I think I wonder. There's layout options, but it's not going to perfectly like mirror your layout. But I'm thinking he's talking actual themes, because Obsidian has themes. But I just wanted to mention this first: is you can customize this layout that currently exists. Because in Obsidian you can like drag things around. Obviously, they wouldn't really do that for the web version. That wouldn't really make a lot of sense. But you can customize that. There is themes, I believe.
I think
theme. It's under configuration theme. So
it looks
figure out how the site looks. What it's using is you get to pick the colors and things. It doesn't use the actual Obsidian themes that are out there. It's its own theming system. So I think the answer to your question is no, but you could customize this to look similar. So you could choose different fonts, you could choose your colors, things like that.
Yeah, I wonder if that's maybe because in the same way that they were not using Obsidian on the front page, the idea of saying, well, people who make themes for Obsidian may not specifically want them to be used with Quartz or something like that.
I bet it's more of a technical thing. If you think about what this is doing, in order to like completely perfectly emulate Obsidian's themes, you would have to re-engineer how Obsidian reads its themes. And Obsidian is also not open source, so they would have to reverse engineer actually. So would that be possible? Surely. Honestly, like one of the tools, the first one we looked at, did a version of that. It kind of like made it it was one of the ones that only did one node at a time, but it would try and copy in your theme, and it did a pretty good job of that. But it didn't include any of the extra stuff. It just used your color scheme basically.
I was gonna say, I think it baked in whatever it looked like. Yeah. Maybe even to the HTML file.
I think it copied over your theme CSS file is what it did. So the other thing I would mention, Tim, and given that Obsidian themes the themes themselves are open source, you might be able to look at the CSS of the theme, especially if you built it or customized it, and you may be able to just go and modify the CSS of this to your liking. That may also be a good path too, because it is just a website, right? So if you want to get in and hack around, this is like, okay, open the CSS file. Now this is a mess. Wow. Okay, maybe don't do that. But what I would maybe do is make a new file, call it tim.css, make your changes in there, and then you can link that into the header of your site as an additional file. I don't know exactly what the way Quartz wants you to do that, but usually systems like this will have like a way to add those customizations in. Otherwise, you could manually change the file, but you would, of course, have to do that every single time it spits out a new version of the site, which is not really desirable. So that's where I would look at that. But I'd probably start with what they recommend, which is that just changing the colors in the configuration settings. And again, this is by editing that quartz.config.ts file. So that would be some advanced customization. We've talked about one way to make this syncing easier. Another way you could do this is you could do this syncing kind of like I used to update my website. So you could publish this Quartz folder as a GitHub repository. And you could use GitHub to keep a copy of it, on GitHub, right? And then you could, if you're like scripting inclined or technical, you could make a script on your Reclaim shared hosting that pulls that website down, right? So basically your workflow would be npx quartz build to, update the site on your machine. Then you do something like git add, which would add the changes to your Git repository, and then commit them, git commit. You wouldn't have to do this from the command line, by the way. You could use like the GitHub desktop app to do that. And then on your Reclaim shared hosting, possibly via SSH, you would run a script. Whoops. And that script might look like, I can't demo this without setting up all the GitHub stuff, but I can kind of pretend to demo it. So maybe you've got a script in here and you call it update. And that does something like git pull the changes from your repository. And maybe then you're moving the public folder and all its contents to, wherever the website lives. Again, this would be advanced. I would recommend most people use SFTP.
Yeah, I think I just blacked out for like 30 seconds.
It's more like the reason I'm trying to bring this up at the end of this stream is more to say, because we're working with just files here, these are kind of Lincoln logs, right? Like you can connect things in ways that you're comfortable with. I am pretty comfortable in the world of Git and very, very simple scripts like this. But not everyone is. And so that could look like something else. That could also, like if you know of another way to get files around, there's also GitHub Actions. Some people use those to like publish things to other places. There's also stuff built into SFTP. So I haven't really used this tool that much, but in Transmit and I believe other files as well, or programs as well, you can do like 2 file browsers. So you can basically have a local one and a remote one. So I can go here and this is the left side is my local computer. Oops. Go to Quartz and then public. And then I can connect again to my shared hosting and go to the same place. So that was Quartz demo, I believe. And Transmit has this button over here called sync, and it'll just sync the 2 directories every time you ask it to. You can even have it make sure that like files that don't exist in one place get removed from the other. There's all kinds of things you can do. I like this. I haven't really used this tool that much, but this is basically like rsync, but with a GUI kind of thing. And like I said, I'm using Transmit here, but there are other tools that do this. I don't have a lot of experience with any of them, but my point is you can see this is yet another way to kind of make this syncing a little bit easier. But on the face of it, doing this is, in my opinion, not that bad, especially if you're not doing this as a Transmit crashed. That's fun. Maybe don't use Transmit. But maybe I'd recommend FileZilla. But I probably need to update Transmit. But anyway, so here's there's a lot of ways you can manage this, and while I think SFTP is probably the easiest to get started, I think it's the most steps basically.
Yeah, I do also want to put in a plug for just the file manager in cPanel, if only because if you're used to cPanel and you're used to directories, file manager's not bad.
The problem is you have to upload like 300 files individually, right? So, or not 300, but yeah, that's true. That's even more steps though. But yeah, that would work. So, and you know what? Let's just try it and demo it because we do have a little bit of time here. It's not that bad. And the file manager, I really like the file manager, to be clear, in cPanel. I think it's actually really powerful and it's built in and it works. But the way that would work, so if I go back, I'm just going to go back again to my desktop, Quartz, public, and I'm going to zip this up. So if I go in here and compress it, I can then, and I'm going to move this just so it's easier for me to find. I'm going to move it to my downloads folder. I can go into this site here and I would,
upload.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if I should delete the stuff that's here, but let's not. Let's just leave what's there for now.
It'll automatically replace it for you.
Okay. So I'm going to upload that zip file.
Maximum file size allowed for upload 82 gigabytes.
It's just whatever your
the storage you have
storage
left
limit is. I have a 100 gig account and I'm using 20-ish gigs of it.
Okay.
So. Oops. This is one thing I don't like about the file manager is every single time you hit go back, it opens a new window.
But I don't know what you're talking about. That's never happened to me.
Yeah. Is this a Firefox thing?
I don't know. It might not be. Extract is top right.
Oh, yeah. I was right click, but you can do that too. Let's do it. Let's do it the pilot way.
This is my demo now.
Look at me. All right. So the one thing I like about this, especially, is it usually does a pretty good job of. I find this. So this path is the folder we're in. So that's great. Mm-hmm. We're going to just extract that.
Yep.
Then we have to do one more thing. It extracted it to a folder called public, which we actually don't want. So we have to go in there and we have to move all of these files. And you can do a select like I just did with the shift key. You can use the select all button and you can drag, or you can right click and move, whatever is easier for you. I find dragging my
I usually do drag.
So I'm going to drag it into Quartz demo. It's now
I usually compress everything that's in the which might not work for hidden files, so don't listen to me.
Compress everything.
Like before I move things over to file manager, I would like go into the public folder, for example, but again, hidden files. And I would select everything there, and then I'd compress that, and it would name it automatically like archive.zip, and then I would just pull.
On the Mac side, you mean?
I just cut out that nesting problem.
Got it. Okay, so you're saying instead of what I did, you do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, this would actually work great because there aren't any hidden files that we care about. There's the only hidden file here is that htaccess file, which already exists. We already made it.
Yeah.
Let's do that. I like that plan. So Quartz, I'm gonna just go back here and I had to delete that public file that we don't need. Another thing that is nice is you won't get these junk files that macOS makes because we're not copying the hidden files. I'm also going to get rid of my zip file that I don't need. So I'm going to upload that archive.
I'm on Team Pilot with this one. Like I'm obsessed with the file manager. I do everything in the file manager, but I don't do that much complicated stuff. So
yeah.
I think
this is why we're here, and this is why we don't leave Taylor to his own devices. So
there are easier ways.
So reload and extract files, and I think that should be it, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
And you'll see that anything that has been replaced, so anything that is not a hidden file, has now the timestamp is updated to 9 to now.
Yeah. Perfect. So that works really well. Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's maybe what I would recommend over anything we've shown. It's still not, one step. And this is why I think for this type of thing, the strength is not as a blogging tool. Like I think for blogging, you want to eliminate as many steps between writing and publishing as possible. At least that's my goal, because otherwise I won't write. So, but to publish notes occasionally or to use Obsidian as a way to create documentation, this is a really robust, pretty simple to use tool that I think is definitely worth a look. About
Agreed.
the only thing that I could knock this for in terms of like website editing, and it's not its fault at all, is the fact that you don't really have a way to edit this with other people, right? But that's an Obsidian problem, not this, right? You could share an Obsidian vault. I think there are ways to do that with the sync feature. Or you could use another tool to share the vault, right? You could use like GitHub to manage those files if that would work, or Dropbox or something, and have multiple people editing it. And then there's a lot of possibilities when you work within the realm of simple plain text and simple command line tools, basically.
Yeah, and also a lot of control. So
Yeah.
and that's kind of what we like about it. So I mean, I thought this was awesome. I would definitely want to use something like this for the examples you gave of like documentation or course creation, or like a handbook or a lore Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also thinking of like Taylor, you were saying one of the maybe weaknesses is it's not so good for stuff where you want to be posting immediately as fast as possible, because there's a couple steps to get the site published every time you want to update it. But for documentation, for your course guide, for anything that you're going to be drafting and then maybe updating once every couple months,
Yeah,
once you
want it
have a new
regularly.
version ready to go,
Mhm.
it feels for a blog, you kind of want your blogging to be pretty fast and easy, which I think is, we had that recent last week, you switching to Ghost to make it a little easier on yourself. But I
it's
don't know.
about finding the right tool for the job, right?
Yeah.
Like I fundamentally believe that's the thing. And we talk about WordPress a lot around here at Reclaim, and that's because it is often the right tool for the job. Like shockingly often, I think, when you're trying to make a website.
Mhm.
But I always think it's worth considering alternatives and playing with them. And I understand that not every project has the capacity for that. That's kind of why we're here, is to try and explore things for folks. But think that through. Think through, like, is the easiest way going to be to have a WordPress site and then, install like a couple plugins and find a good theme? Or do we not even want to do any of that, and we really only have one main person who's going to be updating this thing? Then that's fine. One note that Pilot you made internally that I want to mention here is, what if you want to do multiple static sites with Quartz? And how would you do that? Yeah, you would install it a couple different times. So it's important to note that the Quartz, when you're going through their instructions, and let me get my screen back up here. When you're going through their instructions on how to install it, this is simply grabbing the Quartz project from GitHub and making a folder and then installing and setting up Quartz inside of it. You could add another step here. So you could git clone this, and instead of going right into it, you could rename it. You could just rename it to be, documentation or whatever you want. And then do the setup stuff. One of the other things that we won't really have time for, that I want to explore, is it also lets you copy an existing folder of content. That's pretty straightforward. I mean, honestly, the benefits of that are kind of minuscule because you could copy files yourself too. But then there's also an advanced one where you can symlink. So that's kind of interesting to me, because I'm not, so Obsidian is where my non-public stuff goes. And I think for me, the right answer is to not mix things. And if I have something I want public on the internet, I should probably just take that note, copy it, and paste it on my website. That's probably the answer for me. But let's say I wanted to have more notes and keep them all in the same vault, because I have a really complicated vault with like I use like 15 plugins, and that changes. I'm always trying new ones out and deleting old ones and things like that. So to have multiple vaults, it's not something I want to deal with, because I would be constantly going like, oh, is this one up to date with my settings over here? It's just fully a non-starter for me for frequent use. It wouldn't bother me for documentation, to be honest, but like for, if I was updating this thing once a week. You could do something like a symlink where it only grabs a single part of your Obsidian vault. That would be interesting, like a single folder. There's also options in Quartz to, instead of publish the whole thing, it'll look for a particular tag and only publish notes with that particular tag. I believe that was called whitelisting. I was looking at that earlier.
Maybe searching for tag.
Yeah. It was a configuration option. You had to tell it to basically work in the opposite direction of what it normally does. But there's a lot of things that are, I think, kind of interesting when possibilities with Quartz that you could explore.
Do you know if it's possible to tag it with like, oh wait, ignore pattern? So the idea of saying like, if you tag a particular note with don't publish, Quartz will skip it. Versus what you're saying, which is
this is going by file names and folders.
Okay.
But you could do that too. But in my case, I would probably want to have, no, don't publish anything unless I opt a note into being published, basically.
Yes.
And so that's the opposite. There are some capabilities for that. It's way out of the scope for this stream, and honestly, something I basically just read about but didn't try. And of course, I didn't write down what page, so I don't know where that is anymore. I've been looking at Quartz for like a couple months, so I discovered that capability a while ago and forgot to look at it further. But like I said, I think the simplest method here would be to have a second vault, right? To have a vault for public stuff and a vault for non-public stuff. That's probably the simplest method. Don't be like me and try to make it more complicated. But if you want to, you can. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Taylor, can you actually, that thing up at the top, this page is tagged with feature filter. If you click that tag,
yeah, it has tag pages.
Amazing.
So, yeah. And I didn't tag any of the notes in our demo vault, but you can even see in the file manager, it has this tags folder, and this is where where the pages would get created, basically. Obviously, we didn't do any tags, but so if I go to my Quartz demo /tags, I believe it'll show, yeah, these are all the this is an index of all the tags.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
so
nuts,
if you look if you look at the documentation for Quartz, you can see all of the tags that they use.
Yep.
Too.
It's pretty cool. Like I said, this is a really interesting tool, and one I'm definitely going to return to when I have a need for it, because I think even with some of the downsides we've mentioned, I think this is really focused in a way that I really like. That makes it simple to get started with. And I love the fact that you can essentially edit this and it will look like your Obsidian vault in basic structure, and the rendering of your files, it mirrors all that. So.
I know we're over time. Check it off your bingo cards. If we can take like 2 more minutes, can you open up the graphing feature? I know, Amanda, particularly if you have to head out, I know that sometimes you have something at 11, but
I'm in.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, let's look at the graph. I mean, I don't really know what's here. Basically, you can look at the graph and you can click on nodes. These are individual notes.
Okay.
I don't know how configurable it is beyond that.
Graph
Let's see.
View.
It's very configurable is the answer.
Nice.
You can change whether you're allowed to drag it around. That's kind of interesting. Whether you're allowed to zoom. Oh, yeah, you can zoom with
perfect.
your mouse wheel or on a trackpad.
Do you think that you can make it?
You can exclude tags. You can say whether to show the tags or not. It's kind of interesting.
Nice.
So that's a tag component, I'm guessing.
Yep. Do you think that
I love you can change the physics.
nice?
Wow.
Well, that's something that you can do in Obsidian. Obsidian
Okay.
will let you do distance, they'll let you do directions on the graph, they'll let you do the size. I don't know if actually I think that probably Quartz does do this. The more that a tag is used or a thing is linked to, the bigger it appears, because it's more important. That kind of thing. I wonder if probably not. It would be really cool if there was a way that you could, for example, for this page, click on just the box of the graph view and have it like
Be
become
larger.
bigger. Oh,
I guess that button does it.
yes. And yeah, you can see.
Yeah, and actually, I'm guessing that's what the global graph. That's probably what that is. So in this one, you can separately change some of those options. You can change the opacity, which is interesting because you'll notice it is slightly this might not come well through in the screen share, but I can see that it's slightly transparent, which is maybe you don't want that. Yeah, this is cool. And the only thing that I don't love is the way links work in Quartz is a little weird. So things have links, right? So like when I click on a thing, it updates up here in the address bar. But certain things don't that I would want them to. So I would love to have a link to the global graph view. But as you can see, it doesn't really work that way. It's sort of a part of the page. That's not a huge deal, right? But something to note. And maybe there's a way. Maybe there's this fancy link that you can use in here that's like, like whatever these are called. Something like URL parameter. I don't know. Anyway, maybe there's something like that. But yeah. Global graph view. This is one of those things where, I love when they go into all this and they're like, also, if you want to do more, I don't know, man, just learn TypeScript and edit the project.
Just go crazy. It's fine.
Fork it, okay? We gave you enough, okay?
To be fair, they gave a lot.
They did. So, yeah. And definitely worth looking into. We're over time, but thanks, Pilot and Amanda, for being here. And asking questions, but also showing me a simpler way to demo the file management. Because I do think at the end of this, I'm pretty convinced that what you should do is zip the files up the way Amanda mentioned and upload them.
Yeah.
Unless you're already in the SFTP world. But
yeah, and if you're not, Path of Least Resistance, highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Taylor, for showing us this, doing all of the months of looking into it, for bringing it to us.
I mean, that makes it sound like a lot of research. What I mean is I found out about this a couple months ago, and then I was like, I should look at that.
You've been working on this every day for months. Okay.
Yeah.
This
is
hundreds of hours of research right now.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. It was really easy to follow along. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Thanks, everyone, for coming and all your comments in the chat.
Yeah, thanks. I was pleased with the reaction and participation we got. So thank you all. Have a good Friday and a good weekend.